12 creepy and harrowing movies for Jeepers Creepers lovers. It is going to be 20 years since Victor Salva's Jeepers Creepers first hit theaters, and yet it is still scary to many of us. See, that's the charm of the movie. It does not matter which year we are in, a classic horror movie like Jeepers Creepers will always be a timeless masterpiece. Speaking of the highlight of this flick here, doesn't the mere thought of the creeper still send shivers down the spine? Full credits to the writer and director Salva for not only introducing us to the most dreadful looking beast, but also giving us a first-hand experience of the creeper's disturbing way of living. With 3 movies already in the franchise and an upcoming 4th installment to be added and set for a late 2021 release, fans of the series are literally calculating days. But while all of them do that, how about we take you through a list of the 12 most creepy and harrowing films that we are dead sure Jeepers Creepers lovers are absolutely going to relish. Are you ready? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Hitcher, 1986. Jim Halsey happens to be a young guy transporting a car from Chicago to San Diego. On the way, he decides to give a lift to a hitchhiker, unaware of the latter's murderous intentions. The hitchhiker introduces himself as John Ryder and proves to be a complete maniac, threatening Jim with a switchblade.
Keep driving.
After shoving the maniac out of his car, Jim feels lucky to have escaped him. Oblivious to the fact that his nightmares have only begun, Jim eventually becomes entangled in Ryder's killing spree to the extent of even getting framed for his crimes. The character of John Ryder can easily be regarded as one of the best villains to have existed in cinematic history, and the late Dutch actor Rutger Hauer as the Hitcher was absolutely terrifying. He is spectacular with his dialogue deliveries. Can you forget him saying, "I'm going to sit here, you are going to drive"?
I'm going to sit here. You're going to drive.
You have to see his expressions here. The eyes and that brilliant voice of his does most of the trick. But our favorite line definitely happens to be, "Because I cut off his legs and his arms and his head, and I'm gonna do the same to you."
And I'm going to do the same to you.
You will have to experience the scene yourself to know why we are stressing on this. The fact that Hauer worked exceedingly hard while preparing for this movie just shows. You may not know this, but most of the stunt driving in the movie was actually done by him. Also, he did a lot of improvising too when it came to certain parts. That particular shot where his character held a knife very close to Halsey's eye, the fear that you see on C. Thomas Howell's face is 100% genuine. Hauer not only improvised his lines there, but also the position of the knife. Ryder's uncanny ability to kill and survive along with his relentless pursuits bear a great amount of resemblance to the Jeepers Creepers movie. Just the way the creeper was meant to cross his paths with Trish and Jenner, it's pretty much the same thing here with Ryder and Halsey. Also, both the characters will stop at nothing till they get what they want, and it does not matter who gets in their way. To all the fans of Jeepers Creepers out there, give this 1986 road thriller a definite watch if you haven't. You have every reason to like this flick that Entertainment Weekly ranked as the 19th scariest movie of all time. Joyride, 2001. Lewis Thomas and his brother Fuller are on their way from California to Colorado to pick up Lewis's childhood friend and crush, Venna. During the journey, Fuller and Lewis decide to play a prank on a truck driver named Rusty Nail by pretending to be a woman on the radio.
Hey, Black Sheep. This is Candy Cane. I've been looking for you all day.
What starts out as a joke pretty soon takes a deadly turn with the psychotic truck driver chasing them uncompromisingly to get his revenge. John Dahl's Joyride, also titled Roadkill in the United Kingdom, is an entertaining horror thriller, one that is packed with oodles of tension. It would not be wrong to address this movie as relatively realistic, given that it's quite capable of making its viewers picture their very selves in the scenario. No points for guessing who the real star of the movie is. Rusty Nail is quite the mysterious, psychotic truck driver. We have the hulking Matthew Kimbrough as the man behind the silhouette, and Ted Levine for that bizarre, creepy voice, of course. To those of you who are wondering where you might have heard of Levine, he is the guy who essayed the role of Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Brimmed with impressively composed thrill sequences, the flick is bound to remind you a lot of Victor Salva's Jeepers Creepers, especially the chase scenes and the dark, gritty atmosphere around them. Joyride is definitely not a flick that will change your life, but it's ingeniously exciting and quite the roller coaster ride of twists. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, 1981. Charles Elliot Bubba Ritter happens to be a mentally impaired man who is friends with a young local girl called Mary Lee Williams. Some of the locals in town are not okay with the duo being friends, especially the sleazy, menacing postman Otis Hazelrig. One day, Mary Lee gets brutally attacked by a dog and ends up being unconscious. Hazelrig quickly assumes that Bubba is behind the incident, even though the latter had saved her life. The postman, along with 3 of his friends, form a lynch mob and execute Bubba, who had disguised himself as a scarecrow in a nearby cornfield. The group even goes to the extent of claiming self-defense and walks free from the court. What follows next is the wrongfully slayed man exacting his vengeance on all those who killed him from beyond the grave. Frank de Felita's 1981 American made-for-TV horror flick is fondly remembered to this date for a lot of reasons. To begin with, we have the exceptional chilling score by Glenn Paxton. Next in line is the solid storyline that is enveloped with a gripping sense of dread and terror. Then comes the concept of scarecrows. They have been a horror staple for literally years now. Cut to 2021, the movie might not scare its viewers the way it probably would have done back in the 1980s, but trust us when we say that it will certainly make you feel uneasy thanks to the heavy mystery element. Remember the painful crying of Bubba repeatedly telling that he didn't commit the crime he was being hunted for?
I know, sweetheart.
Well, Larry Drake was so convincing as Bubba Ritter, doing full justice to his character. The fact that this flick solely banks on the setting, along with the performances of the characters, makes one realize how very similar it is to Jeepers Creepers. The tranquil, rural setting is soon turned into a place where your fears are realized, something that definitely rings a bell for most of the Jeepers Creepers fans out there. Do not hesitate in giving Dark Knight of the Scarecrow a watch. You cannot miss the ending, it is extremely haunting. The Relic, 1997. Lieutenant Vincent D'Agosta happens to be a homicide detective with the Chicago Police Department who is investigating a series of decapitated heads. When a new victim is found killed in the same manner at the Field Museum, D'Agosta suspects a link between the two.
Decapitation seems a bit severe.
Enlisting the aid of evolutionary biologist Dr. Margot Green, the duo probes deeper and soon realizes that there is a large South American lizard-like creature on the loose in the museum. Now it is up to Dr. Green and D'Agosta to save the day. Peter Hyams' 1997 monster horror flick is very atmospheric, filled with a lot of suspense. Full credits to Hyams' exceptional work of cinematography here. This man just knows what to do to make things work in his favor. In spite of a somewhat limited budget, one of the key strengths of the film is its monster. We all know how difficult it can be to create and bring a beast on the screen, especially something that has not been seen before. So it goes without saying that this whole thing was quite challenging, especially for the studio. On the basis of a sketchy portrayal in the novel by Preston Child, the lead concept artist, Mark Crash McCreary, came up with quite a few Kothaga designs. The concluding design had a 15 feet long body, which was a blend of an alligator, lion, and horse, with reptilian scales and a bunch of hair down the spine. Let's not forget its terrifying spider-like head. Hyams deserves mention yet again, for it was his decision to shoot the creature mostly in silhouette, so as to avoid even the slightest possible chance of it looking fake. Coming back to the narrative, we admit that the story isn't original, but it does a spectacular job of putting all the segments together one piece at a time. Relic features some genuine scary moments. The kills on display are brutal, and the sets along with the location are simply marvelous. To all fans of the monster horror genre out there, if you just wish to have some fun, this is worth a watch. Brotherhood of the Wolf, 2001. Back in 1764, a mysterious beast was terrorizing the domain of Givaudan. Having killed over 100 people, the creature became so feral that the King of France had to ultimately send envoys to capture it. Gregoire de Fronsac, a knight and the loyal naturalist of King Louis XV of France, and his Iroquois buddy Manny have been given the task to probe deeper into the matter and find out who is responsible behind the mysterious killings. You will be quite amazed to know this, but back in the years 1764 to 1767, there actually was a beast of Givaudan. This wolf-like creature mainly stalked the Auvergne and South de Dorne regions of France, slaughtering close to 100 people. This historical fact alone makes Christophe Gans's 2001 French period action horror all the more intriguing. We also have the strikingly beautiful Monica Bellucci portraying the role of the Italian courtesan, Silvia, and we cannot even blame her for being so mysterious and enchanting. Bellucci builds up quite an intense atmosphere, so much that we as viewers are not sure if her character is going to help out our heroes or cause hindrance. Our leading protagonists, Fransak and Manny, are seen sharing an impeccable chemistry, and let's not miss out that the duo happens to be excellent fighters too. Coming to the beast here, Gans is pretty wise to not give his audience a clear picture of the animal. All we know is that it is huge and vicious. His brilliant method of leaving the creatures to our imagination worked out well. The CGI work is mind-blowing. Remember that scene where the beast is shown slowly lurking out of the fog right behind our hero? That is bound to quicken a lot of breaths and raise goosebumps too. Mark our words when we say that Brotherhood of the Wolf is a good old-fashioned horror movie terrain. Watch the trailer first if you are still not convinced. Abominable, 2006. Preston Rogers is bound to his wheelchair following a rock climbing accident. He decides to spend some time at a remote cottage in the woods, and his nurse, Otis, accompanies him. A group of women celebrating a bachelorette party arrive next door, and eventually one of them gets abducted by a gigantic hairy creature.
I miss you so much.
The monster is believed to be a Sasquatch that had been lurking in the woods around the cabin. In due course, it goes on a bloody rampage, brutally killing one target after the other. Ryan Schifrin's feature-length directorial debut not only happens to be captivating in every sense, but the flick is also a pure creature feature with a generous dosage of the Hitchcockian twist. Believe us when we tell you that there is no computer-generated imagery here. Most of the facial movements of the creature have been attained through robotics, with the end results looking very natural. Abominable also boasts an incredible screenplay co-written by Schifrin, with almost all the incidents visually experienced by our main guy Preston. His helpless perspective creates a more than perfect claustrophobic setting along with a lingering spooky uneasiness. Adding to the charm of the movie is six-time Oscar nominee Lalo Schifrin as the composer behind the brilliant musical score. Fun fact, the noise made by the creature was in reality the sound of a horse breathing, but slowed down. Yup, it would not be completely wrong to address this movie as an instant cult classic here. The Axiom, 2018. Marilyn is a young woman who believes that somewhere there is a doorway that leads to a different world. One day, she decides to take a trek into the Cinder National Forest, only to become trapped in another dimension, one that is filled with monsters. Sometime later, her sister Mackenzie forms a group and travels to the National Forest in search of her. The group happens to stumble upon an abandoned cabin in the woods and very soon discover that they have also been sucked into an alternate zone, the same way Marilyn was.
Where are we?
Another world.
The group needs to find a way to survive and escape. Director and screenwriter Nicholas Woods does a fair job with this indie horror here in terms of certain elements like mystery and adventure. You cannot disregard the interesting premise of the film. It successfully manages to grab your attention. You have a great setting, one that is perfectly created by Woods. The hallucinations on display are the real deal, and you're going to love how well it is executed. The Axiom is living proof that you do not require a big budget to come up with a grippingly disturbing horror flick. If you fancy a good story, there is no harm in giving this a try.
Everything's okay.
It Follows, 2014. Jamie J. Height ends up having sex with her new boyfriend, only to learn of a curse passed on to her by her boyfriend, who tells her that a supernatural shape-shifting entity will be following her till she transfers it to another man through the act of intercourse.
Just sleep with someone as soon as you can. Just pass it along.
Not doing so will result in her dying. After Jay actually finds herself being followed by the entity taking different forms, she proceeds to tell her sister and her friends, who decide to help her out in every way possible.
Look, I'm gonna stay up all night and keep an eye out for anything weird.
Director, writer, and co-producer David Robert Mitchell carries out this supernatural horror flick with such style and confidence that you cannot help yourself but be amazed by his dexterity. This is a film that knows what it is doing, and its purpose is to make the viewers feel like they are also a part of the dreadful experience. Everything about this movie works. The characters are relatable, the tension is raw, the environment is pretty brooding, and you simply get sucked into this bizarre, sinister world. Many of you might not know this, but the main idea of the film was actually a result of a recurring nightmare that David used to have, one where he would be followed by a killer that continually walks slowly towards him. Wow, right? Nightmares do come true, and here it's in the form of a movie. Unlike other films, It Follows does not rely on blood and gore. Instead, it will make you pause and think. The entity on display moves very slowly. In fact, it actually walks, so it ends up building the suspense and makes you wait long enough before it strikes. There is this prevailing sense of dread here, and the movie is extremely capable of leaving a disturbing chain. It Follows is an absolute must-watch, especially for all the horror fans out there. Prophecy, 1979. Dr. Robert Verne takes up a job with the Environmental Protection Agency to write a report about a clash between a paper mill with a Native American tribe in Maine. His wife also decides to tag along with him on the trip. While investigating, the duo discovers the problem: mercury poisoning from the mill.
What was the answer?
Mercury.
But what they are not aware of is that the paper mill's toxic waste has made a local bear mutate into a monstrous, brutal beast spreading terror and death. The late veteran director John Frankenheimer not only managed to present his 1979 science fiction horror film as a monster flick, but he also made it a dynamic story, one with side effects of the polluted environment. The film, along with its campy moments, delivered an environmental message, one that will stick with you for a long time. The key to this flick's suspense happens to be the grisly monster on display here, who is literally 15 feet tall and absolutely terrifying. Many of you might not be aware, but the mutant bear was actually portrayed by American actor and stuntman Kevin Peter Hall, who was over 7 feet tall. Hall has essayed various memorable man-in-a-suit monsters back in the 80s, such as the Predator. Coming back to Prophecy, when you have scenes where a family gets slaughtered and a man in an upturned vehicle gets his head ripped off, it kind of makes the monster appear genuinely scary. No wonder Stephen King happens to be extremely fond of the film till date. The tone of the movie has been purposely kept very serious. It effortlessly catches the attention of the audience, who have their eyes glued to the screen. The flick features some epic chase scenes, but the moonlit run through the fog-laden lake happens to steal the show. So if you are a monster movie fan, we suggest that you watch this with the lights off.
I'm the guy that's gonna save your ass.
Feast, 2005. John Gulager's Feast concerns a group of people having a good time inside a local bar in Nevada when they are unexpectedly attacked by hungry, flesh-eating creatures. They are forced to seal the place up and form strategies to save themselves from the deadly beings. This 2005 movie boasts a fun story alongside every element of horror that one could possibly desire in a flick. The action scenes deserve a mention because trust us, they are going to blow away that mind of yours. The comical introductions for the top-notch cast such as Hero, Harrowing, Honey Pie, Beer Guy, Tuffy gives this flick here an unusual edge, making it even more interesting. The movie maintains its fast pacing through the running time of 87 minutes with uninterrupted excitement. As for the monsters here, their long claws and razor-sharp teeth do the trick for them. They are very unpredictable, thereby breaking the rules of horror with who gets to live and who does not. In short, Feast is a great watch. Don't miss out on it.
Wake up, Seymour, for God's sake!
The Burrowers, 2008. The events of the film take place in the year 1879. A gang of courageous men venture out into the unmapped territories in search of a family of settlers who have inexplicably gone missing from their homes. Initially expecting the offenders to be hostile Native Americans, it does not take them much time to learn that the real enemy stalks them from below. The posse soon find themselves in an unexpected, violent, and bloody fight for survival. We know how tough it can get when one drinks of new ideas and perceptions for a horror film to work. Maybe that is why J.T. Petty's The Burrowers will remind you of certain elements of some very renowned flicks. However, do not let that bother you, because this piece here is brilliant. Based on an original short film called Blood Red Earth, also directed by Petty, this movie here is a pure classic. We have a pack of carnivorous creatures from underground that are known as the Burrowers. Yes, they are a tad bit tough to make out in the dark, but then again, that is exactly what boosts the film. Concrete suspense starts building up and the atmosphere becomes even more sinister. Joseph LaDuca's spooky background score seems to work wonders, intensifying scenes just at the right moment. Also, the whole idea of being buried alive first and eaten post the decomposition starts seems more like a nightmare, one that does not let you wake up. With a running time of 96 minutes, the movie is worth your time. Animal 2014. A group of friends on a weekend getaway find themselves in unfamiliar territory when they are chased by a vicious, bloodthirsty beast, one who will stop at nothing till it hunts them down. Taking refuge in an abandoned cabin, the members come across another surviving group. Soon, bickering and disagreement on what to do start evolving with an increase in the body count. The remaining survivors need to put all their differences aside and fight for survival before the animal ends up killing them all. To be honest, Brett Simmons' 2014 horror thriller does not really offer anything inventive or, let's say, new to the genre. You are bound to wonder then what it is that makes this creature feature stand out. Full credits to the titular antagonist here, with the special effects team deserving praise for making the creature look so exclusive. Appearing more like some kind of metamorphosis between a human and a rodent, imagine the amount of dread that it brought along. Produced by Drew Barrymore, Animal happens to be both visually and audibly remarkable. The setting looks beautiful, while the background score by Thomas Hadju and Andy Milburn is terrific. However, the highlight of Animal is the noise that the creature makes. It is very disturbing. Boasting some epic, scary moments, the flick is bound to catch you off guard. You might even jump out of your seat. We are not going to disclose which ones will make you do so. Do watch out for the climax, because there's plenty of action and horror there. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.